Yes, we have liftoff. We have liftoff. Erica Jane. Hello, 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 hello.
How are you guys?
We are
We are
better for
good. How
seeing
are
you.
you?
We
I'm
are better for
good.
seeing you. Oh, and spices. Look at that, spices, Beena.
Yeah, I'm trying to
Oh,
get.
exciting. What are you making, Erica? What are you making?
I'm trying to make our lunch. Joe is still on the phone,
Oh,
so
take your time. Take your time. Take your time. Just be relaxed. We don't mind. We're happy. We enjoy hanging out with you when you make lunch. So, don't stress. Very cool.
so
You're good. You're good. You got good energy.
guys.
Wow,
You seem focused in
big
your
knife.
energy. That's a big knife. Yeah.
I'm slicing bread. So what's been going on with you guys?
It's almost a panga. a,
What?
a panga is just a South African term for machete. They use them to cut sugar cane. And it's
Uh-huh.
just become a kind of a, like machetes are the thing in South America. Well, pangas are the thing in South Africa for a big
Hmm.
knife. So
It
it
is
looks similar to a machete.
panga. It starts with U, a panga or
No,
panga?
no, no. It's a
Starts
panga.
with P.
So it starts with a P. Yeah,
Okay.
Panga. Panga.
Hmm. Okay. And the panga word without A is a kind of a street language thing where people say, okay, don't mess with me. Don't take
Ah, oh, that
panga
that
with
that may be the origin of the word because in the sugarcane is grown in Natal, which is the province in the northeast of the country, and in
me.
Natal they have that's the center for the Indian community from India, Indians,
Hmm.
so there's a big, large Indian community there, and they're predominantly focused in that area. So that's where the word
Yes,
could
and
have
it
come
is.
with, because you brandish it.
Yes.
So don't mess with me. That's exactly what it represents to most people. Don't mess with me. So yeah, very interesting.
Okay.
Interesting.
But they say without A. So
No,
it's
no, no.
panga.
I don't say it with an A either. I just
Oh.
because I'm saying it's like saying a tree. The word isn't a tree.
Ah.
I'm saying it's
Oh, oh,
a panga.
oh.
Yeah, yeah. So there's no
Oh
A in
yes,
it. It's just
panga.
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 Yeah.
It's a word.
Yeah.
It's a word here, and it is. It comes from, I guess, that from Bollywood movies here,
Yeah.
especially
Interesting.
from Bombay movies, where they say urban city and street boys language and all these things. So, and Pakistani adopted
Right.
very well here.
Right. Traditional culture in well in many of the ethnic, the tribal societies in South Africa, like Zulu or Xhosa and so on, are they're military societies essentially. When you're a boy, you look after the cattle until you turn 16. You become a man and you join the military. That's it. Like, you got two jobs, and the women do everything else. Kind of a ridiculous society, but that's the way it is. So it's a very violence-orientated culture. No, obviously not today so much anymore, obviously, but even 100 years ago, this was the culture, and a lot of things were very specifically um, connected to the violence. Like, for instance, you could not marry until you'd killed someone in battle.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, that's how entrenched that military culture was. So, yeah, big deal. So, on the mines, you remember I told you those mines are, in terms of sophistication and scale and size, quite a few of those mines had 100,000 employees living on site. Can you
Wow.
imagine that? Can you imagine that? I mean, 100,000, that's a pretty fair sized city. But these are employees living on site, right? So this is a huge workforce. Now, if you got 100,000 employees, that means you got a 500,000 at least dependents if you take the people that benefit from the money that they send home and all of this, you got millions of people just from your one mine. You're keeping some economies alive because you have migrant labor all the way up to Malawi. The entire southern Africa sends people down to. People come to work in the mines in South Africa because it's very good money. So it's like coming from Mexico or Central America or wherever to work in America, except working for minimum wage on the farms. It's nothing compared to working in the mines, because this you get danger pay and all this. So the salaries are disproportionately higher. So people will keep entire villages alive, just from one guy working. So it's a very big deal over there. But anyway, the point I was going to make, in the mines, um, they had lots of problem with clashes between the different ethnicities. So they would always put, like, in the Xhosa section, they would put Zulu policemen and vice versa. But every now and then, still, you hear a report of. Well, I don't know so much today anymore. I would imagine so, because there's been a bit of a legitimization of hooliganism in the country as it's gone along. So law and order has kind of fallen. It's decreased quite considerably. But anyway, you would regularly hear reports of just one group snuck into the camp of the other one, and just went and massacred a whole bunch of people in the hostel or whatever, or just these fights between the gangs. And it's a big deal. So yeah, mine security is a big deal. And it's like they're their own little countries, literally. They have their own police and their own hospitals and own schools and everything, because it's so big. You have to do this. So just these the mines in around Johannesburg principally, they're something else. I mean, like I said, it's incredible businesses. My father, because he kind of thinks a little differently. He's a bit of a lunatic, but he went after after he graduated. That's the first place he went to go and work. He went to go and work on a mine as a mine doctor, because as a mine doctor you get to do everything. And yeah, in his logic, you can get to test and experiment. If you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world, stuff like that. So there was some manipulative logic involved. Hey, hello, Joe. How
Yourself?
you doing, man? I'm good. I'm good. How about you? How about you?
Pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Chips. I like it when you guys eat when we do stuff. Makes me very happy. I like multitasking. I like multitasking. I love it. I love it. You been good, Joe? You been good? Yeah. Beside
Hmm?
hungry. Beside hungry. All right. You're hungry. We'll we'll
Pretty
we'll
good.
leave it. We'll
Hello.
alternate. So you got to, like, okay. See, Erica Jane. I was saying while Joe was chewing, then you got to say, and then no, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, you guys enjoy. What are you eating?
Peanut butter and jelly.
The standby. The standby. We gotta
Yeah.
get you some other spreads, like Marmite and cheese, fish paste and cheese. Uh,
Oh, fish paste.
oh, it's very
Okay.
delicious. Oh, you vegan, so you won't eat that. That's right. That's
Right.
Ah,
Yeah.
right. Well, it's made out of anchovies. It's not strong like anchovies. It's very mellow, but it's almost got a salmony taste to it. But anyway, if you're not eating that, then that's not good. Yeah. But yeah, cheese and tomato. That's a good substitute for yeah. If you can eat cheese, oh, you can't eat cheese, no?
Nope.
Oh gosh, can you have vegan cheese?
Vegan cheese, yeah.
Hmm.
All right. Well, vegan cheese and tomato. I don't know what
Mm.
vegan cheese tastes like. Is it all right?
It's kind of hit and miss.
Yeah.
All right.
It's okay, but
I,
not.
I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the 3D printer technology, where essentially they're already starting with this in meat, at least, where you can take a DNA and you can remake the meat. When that becomes commercially viable, then the whole thing goes away. And I would assume they will be able to do this with any product at some point. So yeah, but they can definitely do it with meat, because they kind of grow the meat, as it were, and then you print it out. So this is you're not killing anything, you're not harming anything. You're just taking a
Watched
DNA sample, which doesn't bother
documentary.
anything. Say
We
again.
watched a doc. We watched a documentary about that recently, and it
Ah,
said
cool.
that that technology, in its current state, it still requires them to kill animals to get
Oh, the DNA.
the blood and something or other. But
Oh, I see.
they're working toward
Okay.
not having to do that. So
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Because there was a guy who found it. I don't know if he actually did it or not, or just an idea, or if he was looking for funding. But he wants to make a restaurant where he gets a DNA sample from famous people, and you eat a steak of your famous
oh my God.
That sounds really weird.
but I mean, there's no reason not to. That's what's the fun part of it when you really think about it. I mean, if you're perfectly rational and logical about it, you're not killing anybody. It's just a DNA sample. It's just meat like any other meat. So there's no reason not to. People might be squeamish, but I thought it was a fun concept. It's quite intriguing that he wanted to do this. But that's good that you saw the documentary. That I wasn't sure how far along the technology was. The last time I saw it, they didn't give details. So that's good to know. That's good to know. That's very good to know. At least they're working on it, and there's a big market for it, obviously. So I do see that coming in the future. There's no reason for it not to, none whatsoever. So.
Hmm.
I mean, it's just sophisticated molecular rearrangement, really, right? Once you know how to break it down, you know what's involved in cheese. You can break down into the elements. It's just a matter of rearranging them appropriately. So it shouldn't be that hard to do. Eventually, you know, you just have to have the technology to be able to actually literally create molecules. You put in the raw elements and you feed them together, and you create them, and you put them together, and there you go.
Hmm.
Yeah. No. So it'll come. It'll come. Very exciting. All right, where we at, Erica? Where we at? That's all right. You take your time. We got patience. We got patience. No worries.
We're on. Is this where I left off?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're on conformism.
Conformism. All right. Excellent. Excellent. All right. We're listening, Joe. We're listening.
So I had a couple of repeat backs.
Brilliant. 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 Brilliant.
So
Love it.
the
Love it.
first one
Love
was
it.
kind of the first thing that stood out to me was the fact that bullshitters are conformists.
Yeah.
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 I hadn't really makes sense logically, but I hadn't really ever put that together in my head
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
Trying to
Yeah.
emulate what
Yeah.
the group thinks is cool or appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They just try to do it in a way that it looks like other people are conforming to them, not they're conforming to the group.
Exactly. They peculiar conformists. I think that's the term. Or even in the task, it said, about
Mhm.
peculiar, and that's the thing. They are, on the one hand, they're trying to show everybody, oh, I'm so cool, I'm so original, but yet they're so hell-bent and hung up on people's approval that it makes them complete conformists. It's very amusing. It's very
Mhm.
amusing. Yeah.
And then my other one was people with a lack of independence of being become conformists by default.
Yeah.
I think looking back at high school, it becomes very obvious who had independence of being and who did
Yeah.
not. And
Yeah.
at that point in their life,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
I
Right.
did not.
Yeah, and there were very few who had true independence of being. Even those supposedly cool ones were still conforming to an idea of cool. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. So they were also peculiar conformists. Yeah, I knew very few people who had independence of being, truly had independence of being at school. Very few,
Mm.
very few. Yeah.
All right. So how exactly do we make what comprises us our own? How do we guard against conformity without even realizing we are conforming? What exactly do you do when it comes to owning yourself, and why is freedom of choice so vitally important? Okay, so I said for the first portion, how do we make what comprises us our own? You look at the things that comprise you and focus on how they make you feel. Do they make you feel fulfilled, happy, etc.?
Mm,
Or is it something that you believe you should do because it's what everyone else is doing?
there you go. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. We
how do
had a
we,
fun point on that. That every time should comes up, just add not behind it and see if it makes sense.
every time it comes up,
Should.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just add not behind it. So transform should into should not. And
Mm-hmm.
usually when you say, oh, it should, or somebody says you should, and you hear you should not, it makes more sense as the not than it does as the should,
Mm-hmm.
usually.
Okay.
Yeah. At least if you think about it in carefully a little bit. But also doing that, the key here is to check what is obviously good.
What is obviously good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Get into the habit of checking that.
Mm-hmm. Guarding against conformity without realizing we are conforming. To guard against conformity without even realizing it, you ask yourself questions regularly and self-reflect. You kind of ask yourself the questions that were made up the first part of my answer. How does this make me feel? Do I feel fulfilled? Do I feel happy? Am I doing this just because it's what I think I'm supposed to be doing, or because I've made the conscious decision to do it?
Yeah.
What exactly do you do when it comes to owning yourself? I focus on trusting my decisions. I accept the fact that some of my choices or decisions will be wrong, and that's okay. I realize the mistake and move on with something else. It's also important to look at your behaviors and make conscious decisions to keep them or not based on how they make you and others feel.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. So is it a mistake or is it an alternative learning?
I guess the first time it's an alternative learning. If you do it again and again and again, at some point,
There you go. There you go. If you don't learn, well, then it becomes, yeah. But this is
Mhm,
powerful. When we really just shift that, it sounds fun, but it's really true, though. For me, I don't see mistakes. I just learn. Okay, I'm learning. That's it. I did my
mhm,
best. I learned. It's not a big issue. It's just a non-thought. The only people that are concerned with mistakes are those with ego and issues. Otherwise, it's just all learning. That's it. End of story. Just learning.
mhm.
Very powerful. Um, I had something else I wanted to say. Uh, ah, Before I forget, just in terms of your web design thing, right? I've got to get a bee off my bonnet. Every time I get onto a website, I rail and scold and rage. Well, not rage, but I rail against the designers at how they do not regard the click as the most precious thing in web design.
Mhm,
Right. So I do many things repetitively. I say, if you're going to do a web design, whatever people are doing on your web that you want them to do, please do it 100 times before you sign off on your design. If you do it 100 times in a row, you're going to see where you can save every single precious click and also, cursor movement, things like this. You're going to optimize for that time. And because you do it once or twice, it's no big deal, but just do it repetitively. I do many things repetitively, and oh my goodness, do they waste my time. I see
mhm,
this day in and day out, all the time, that nobody's optimizing for repetitive usage.
mhm.
Astonishing. It's astonishing, and it just fascinates me how they don't think about this. Just to minimize, because and you can look at it in terms of retention. Every single extra click gets you less and less and less retention.
Mhm.
They know this already when it comes to clicks and opening new pages and all of this. One page web design, you can scroll rather than click, all of this stuff. But they still don't think of it in terms of actual literal clicks. It just intrigues me. And also, cursor movement, stuff like that.
Mhm.
So, yeah, yeah. And,
Yeah,
and,
you
and
got
little things like if you ask me to put in my address, don't force me to go and click and then only have my cursor in the box. Have it already there waiting for me. Simple things like this. Just those microseconds when you do a lot of stuff online, and especially now that everybody's online all the time, that stuff adds up. You got a nice, efficient, time-saving thing, even if you literally save in a quarter second, and I appreciate that. 100 quarter seconds is a lot of time. Yeah, because you're doing that same stuff during the day. So anyway, there you go. So all right. So hopefully this will get out there and people will see Joe's fabulous design and they say, "Man, I got to start saving clicks and cursor tracking on this. I got to make things really save time for my people that are coming to my site." And everybody will do this, and the whole world will be much better. Thank you, Joe.
yeah. Hopefully, start this weekend.
At least that I know the ideas out there. So I'm just leveraging my own idiot brain, you see.
Mhm,
Yeah, you gotta choose to believe sometimes. You gotta choose to believe,
mhm.
right? So, all right. So now I can feel happy. All right, I've done something about it. Anyway,
All right.
let's carry on. Yeah, sorry.
Freedom of choice, and why is it so vitally important? And I just said because freedom of choice is the only thing that prevents us from being conformists.
Exactly. And being mindless robots. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, conformism is just
Yeah.
it's going along and not making the choice.
Yeah. It's what makes us real, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a simple question, but it's really nice to really think about this question and actually to have an answer. It's so often that we have these obvious questions, but they're unanswered, and it means it's unfinished in the brain. When you actually make that effort to answer these obvious, redundant, seemingly rhetorical questions, it ties it off in the brain, and it's one less open thing that gets done. It gets resolved, so it frees up energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Very cool. Very useful.
All right. 10 was Power Lust.
Powerless. Yes, the movie now playing.
Let's see. I had 2 repeat backs on this one. Tyrants, BSers, and BMNs, etc., get themselves into a cycle of BS. The more power they get, the more they have to hide. So they have to get more and more power. And if you don't break that cycle very early, it becomes almost impossible to break it because you basically have to destroy your entire sense of self-worth at that point.
Yes, exactly.
And there's a section in the slides that says the best way to avoid corruption, the corruption of should, is to ask why. What stood out to me was, but the conditioning of you should do this starts when we're incredibly young. And at that age, it's not always okay, or a lot of times it's not okay to ask why. Or if you do, it's just taken as, oh, you're just a kid, you're just asking why to annoy me.
Why? Not take it seriously.
Yeah, that conditioning starts, almost the day you can understand words. You should get out of bed at this time. You should wear these clothes. You should clean your hair. You should do this.
Yes.
For most of us, we're learning that we need to be asking why, like at a much older age.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At a much later time.
And the insidious corruption of should is that it leverages our intent to goodness. If you're good as a kid, by default, it means to be good is to do what you should do. This is the very definition of being good and of what should means. This is the thing that good people do. Should means doing what's good. And this is the corruption, it's an amazing thing. So that's why we have to check what is good coming in. So Kay was asking this. She brought this up, and it was really cool. She said, "Well, do I subscribe, or do I think impeccability is good?" It's like, wow, you're doing the way of impeccability, but this is really important. And she said she was kind of like trying to, almost apologizing for a little bit. I said, no, this is fantastic. This is absolutely essential for a bunch of reasons. One, we want to get into the habit of checking something that seems just obviously good to make sure it is actually so, right? Because we want to say based on what. But the second point is to say, okay, should I be impeccable? That was her question, actually. Should I be? You may decide I should be impeccable. The second question is, do I want to be impeccable? That's a different question. This is a fantastic question. And because I can decide up here, yes, I want to, but you have to bring it down right there into your will point and literally physically move that thought down into your body, into a feeling to say, I want to be impeccable. This is a whole different deal, right? So, especially in team management, you ask them, well, do you think you should be impeccable? They'll say yes. Ask them, do you want to be impeccable? Do you want to be honorable? Different question. You ask somebody, do you want to be? And they say yes in the affirmative. They're moving it from their head down into the body. Right? And now it's a whole different logic. When we want to do something, we make it happen. So it's very powerful. Very, very powerful. We need to feel. This is the whole thing in way of impeccability. That emphasis point was entirely on we need to feel it. Otherwise, it's not real. We need to feel it, feel it, feel it. Otherwise, it's not real. So all of these kinds of things, we want to feel it. Yeah. Very powerful. Very powerful. Very cool. So when it comes, sorry, Joe, just before you go on 1 second, in terms of your new business with a web design, right? Do you
Mhm.
feel it down here? Like there by your belly button in that area, everybody's point is different. They point, I call it the will point. It sits in different points for different people. But do you feel that you want to do it rather than think you want to do it?
Yes.
There you go. See, that's the criteria. If you couldn't answer yes, especially with such an enthusiastic, affirmative yes, then I'm sorry to say, I would have tell you, you're wasting your time, Joe. But if you feel it, then you're not. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. It's going to be a miserable event. And you see people follow this and they have no feeling to it, and it dies soon, or it goes nowhere, or it implodes, or whatever. It won't work if you don't feel it. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's fantastic to hear. Oh, that really makes me happy to hear that you're feeling it. Especially the way you said the yes. There was a lot in that. That yes had a lot in that. That was fantastic. That was
Yeah.
fantastic.
I've
That was
thought about
fantastic.
doing it for years. I thought I should do it for years, but I guess I didn't feel it then because there was always,
Yeah.
no, there wasn't that there was a reason not to. There just the motivation behind it wasn't.
Yeah.
To do the work wasn't there.
It was here, not there. That's the
Yeah.
difference. It moved to feeling because yes, the brain finds reasons because it doesn't really want to do it. There's no real motivation. Once you have it down there, those reasons disappear. They're probably still there, but they're not longer relevant because you want to do it.
Mhm.
So we'll overcome all sorts of objections when we really want something. And this is
Mhm.
the magic. This is the magic. This is the magic. But if we do this, and we spoke about this, as a deliberate exercise to realize that we have to move things physically in the body, move it from an idea down into the body, and just have that visualization of moving it. And it's kind of an internal funneling that goes. You move it from thought to idea. I want to do this rather than I need to remember to do this. That's a whole different deal. I want to, it gets done. It gets done.
Mhm. Yeah.
It gets done. It makes us, and this is the whole point of wave impeccability. Remember the subtitle was tools for deliberate living. It's all about living deliberately and deliberate living. Deliberate living is a huge power term, power conception. When we live deliberately, everything changes because the moment you deliberate, you're automatically exercising your choice, your will, your intent, and you are choosing to do what you do. Which means if I choose it, I want it. If I want it, I'm motivated. It's a beautiful reinforcing infinity loop. So deliberate living changes everything. Changes
Mhm.
everything. It's very powerful. Very powerful. Yeah. So we want to eat deliberately. We want to sit deliberately. We want to chew deliberately. We want to scratch our eye deliberately. We want to do everything deliberately.
Scratch our accident.
Well, Erica was doing it while I said that. Just teasing. But immediate
Uh,
feedback.
All right, let's see here. Opposite logic connecting to BMNs and BSers. So BSers and BMNs project confidence, success, intelligence, or whatever behaviors they believe will impress the audience that they're interacting with. But that isn't how they actually feel. They feel that if they didn't do that, then the audience will see they're actually not the smartest, most successful, most charismatic, etc. They project what they aren't to hide what they are.
Why?
Let's see. What price do we pay for our desperations, and how does this apply personally? When you're desperate for something, you're more likely to conform to whatever you think is going to get you that thing. You're going to give up your independence of being. I don't know that it necessarily applies to me right now because I don't believe that I'm desperate for anything, but I'm sure it applied to me in high school as I was moving around, or even in grade school when I just wanted to fit in. I wasn't confident enough to pull it off. I wasn't a good BSer at that point in time, I guess.
Good.
Desperately trying to conform to everyone else and to other people. I think it just made me look like I was trying to be something that I wasn't. It didn't seem authentic.
You weren't deliberately trying to do it. It was just again, getting caught up on what you felt you should do and needed to do, and it's a sad reality that kids are never taught that hey, it's okay to just be you and not necessarily fit in. That's all right. It's not the end of the world. It'll come.
And I don't know, we looked at this last night, the last 12 hours or whatever. It's been interesting just to think back to like the individual people in high school, the few people in high school that I think really had independence of self. They did not conform.
Yeah.
In high school, like the rest of us that, were conforming just thought they were so far out there. They were just weird for being weird's sake.
But they just didn't care. Right. And there were some people that were truly cool because they couldn't care two hoots about cool.
Yeah, and they were usually pretty popular. I mean, usually they were fairly popular.
Yeah,
because
exactly. They just didn't care. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are legitimate shoulds which make up your conception of self? So I said, I believe that I should, take care of Erica and Kay and the people that are important to me. I believe I should be patient, honest, flexible, happy, and I should be present. I think
Can you repeat that last one, please?
present,
And I should be what?
Present, like present in the moment.
Oh yeah. I just wanted to emphasize it. I love that.
Yeah, in college, I remember like looking at people who were having the time of their lives, having so much fun.
Wow.
And I was looking at them thinking like, oh my God, I could never do that because 3 days from now, I'm going to regret that decision.
Yes. Yeah.
When 3 days from now, they didn't even remember that decision. They were doing something else.
Right.
But in the moment, they were, they were having the experiences that I probably, would have loved to have been having.
Interesting.
I didn't because I was living somewhere in the future.
Yeah. Well, I just from studying that particular behavior, those people seem like they're having a lot of fun, but actually go and do what they're doing, it gets old very fast and it's very lame very quickly. So it's an illusion, really. So yeah. The idea is stronger than the reality.
Let's see. And then Erica, when we were going through this, mentioned that she added appropriately to her shoulds to kind of qualify them.
Yes.
And I said that I kind of felt like that was baked into my answer a little bit. Like I should be kind until it's not appropriate to be kind anymore.
Yes. It's automatically in parenthesis as appropriate, if appropriate. To me, everything I do, every single thing has in parenthesis behind it as appropriate. That's it. It's like tattooed on my soul. Very cool, Joe. Very cool.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I said, when I did this, I added appropriately because for me, a lot of the things that were on my list from Dictionary Power, it's possible to take that too far or to have it be, if you are saying I should be patient all the time, that doesn't account for times where maybe patient isn't appropriate in the situation. And so I was saying, for me, it was really important to qualify all of that with as appropriate or appropriately. And he said, I thought it was so interesting. He immediately said, well, yeah, I mean, that's just,
it's taken for granted. Yeah. It's nice to be deliberate about it, though.
But I just thought that was so interesting that for me, I think my natural tendency is, I should be this way. Okay, I should be that way all the time. If I ever deviate from this, this is not. Never go like, no, I should be kind as long as it's appropriate to be kind. So.
It's just because you have that natural innate dictatorness to you, that tyranny of self. I'm just teasing you a little bit. It's like a natural tendency for a dictator to be really absolute. I was reading a thing on dictators and tyranny earlier, so it's on my mind. But no, it's brilliant. It's really cool to have that very deliberate and very conscious and very clear, and to break out of that. And of course, appropriate trumps should every time. Everything. There's no absolutes. This is the magic of appropriateness. That's why it is the apex of the A+ philosophy that is the foundation for all of this. That's it. Appropriateness. Just from there, everything flows. It's such a magical concept. And I was telling Erica Jane in this, it's not out there as a philosophical concept, as a philosophy, appropriateness. No way. It just doesn't exist. It's fascinating. Very intriguing.
Self-deception. All right, my repeat backs on this one. So there was a particular slide that called out like being the original content creator of yourself.
Yeah.
And that triggered a lot of thoughts in my head around, how many hundreds of millions of people sit around watching, YouTube and TikTok and other social media, et cetera. And, trying to emulate them because they're right? They're social media influencers for a reason. They're influenced by them. But these people are they're creating all this content that's not real. They're creating content that
Exactly. There are very few original. Yeah.
look at how awesome this is. Look at how awesome I am. They're doing whatever it takes to make money off of that career path.
Yeah.
So it's really, I don't know. It's just really odd to me that the concept of trying to create your own content for your own life when so many of us, especially younger people who really need to be creating the content for their own life and they're learning how to do that, are just force-fed all this content from all day long.
Right. So in Way of Impeccability, we had that session about self-proof and owning it, making everything your own. So this is important, even though we might hear a concept elsewhere. In the case of what Kay was doing with impeccability, she was making that her own. In asking the obvious question, should I be impeccable and do I want to be impeccable? She's owning it for herself. She's now making impeccability hers. In that moment, she's an original content creator. She can now go out and say, I own this. I want to be impeccable. I feel I want to be. I do. I'm not doing it because somebody else. I'm doing it because I saw the sense of it for myself. It's mine now. It's mine. I own it. Doesn't matter where it originated, because we can make the argument that whatever thinking you do, you're using language and you didn't invent the language, so you're using somebody else's concepts to start with. So to be a true original content creator is impossible. However, we can be original content creators of ourselves when we own whatever is ours. Doesn't matter where it came from originally, but you got to own it yourself. So, by the way, just on a depressing note, I made an effort to look for original content creators. I looked at my own timeline one day, and when I don't post original articles anymore. I have too many of them sitting on my website needing to post, but I don't have the time now. But I would put out an article every day, every other day, or a couple of days, whatever. I looked for people doing similar. I couldn't find any. Very depressing. So, what can I tell you? Yeah. It's really sad, So anyway,
I thought this point was really interesting too about their entire being. At this point is,
So I said there are people whose entire being is about creating content for others to consume, and a lot of things that are successful in being influential are based on bullshit behaviors.
Yes.
And there's I'm trying to get better at stock market and trading and stuff, and I'm in a couple of groups online, and there's one guy who drives me insane in one of these groups that I'm in talking about stock options. He started trading just a few months ago. He was in the group asking for advice, saying how excited he was to place his first trade, and now he's out there. He's got this YouTube channel that he posts on all the time. He's got a service that he tries to sell people for teaching them how to trade stocks. Like, the epitome of crap.
Yes.
This is the epitome of BS. You do not know what you're talking about, and you're passing yourself off as this guru. Unsuspecting people are gonna fall for.
It's astonishing. At least the public has sort of been educated by the securities industry to be really, really wary. I mean, even the experts say, look, what was their famous line? Past results do not guarantee future or current. So, everybody's kind of aware of this to some degree. So, if you have time sometime, I'll be happy to chat to you about the stock stuff. I spent years involved in that and studying it, and I used to run a trading account for somebody, and so it's fun. So I like leverage products especially, and especially right now, this is a fantastic time to look into stock options, but not necessarily the option on the stock itself, but like an indexes, options on the indices, because just the current situation where the stock market is trading, and you got a 32% decline in GDP, and your stock market doesn't do anything. It's ridiculous. So at some point, this has got to come home and have a bite. Now, of course, that's because of the amount of money that the Federal Reserve is pumping into the system. And people always forget this. They look at the macro, but still at some point, there's got to be the dip like you had a couple months back. You had those couple big dips. So this is an ideal time to take out a out of the money option far into the future, like towards the end of the year, which you're going to get very cheap. So it's one of those things which it's a gamble, but it's a strategic gamble based on probabilities. You've got between now and the end of the year for the stock market to take a dip, which you can't say exactly when, or you take it even further out, sometime in the first or second quarter next year. You just need it to dip once in that time, and you're in the money, and said, and you get, it's about to leverage. You put down very little money because you're buying that thing, and a small movement, just a fairly good dip, 2, 3, 5%, and you're gonna triple, quadruple, whatever your money on it. So it's about return on investment, and that's the key thing. When you start looking at return on investment, the whole ball game changes. So there are some speculative products which you're speculating, but if you look at it on a longer term basis, you only have to, if you're going to get a higher return, let's say you get 5 times what, because you might put down very little, you only need to be right 4 out of 5 times, and you're going to come out ahead. So yeah, simple things like that. But anyway, it's fun. So yeah. So I'll be interested to hear more.
Let's see. My second takeaway was the trickle down effect, comments near the end, and the concept of one small change resulting in much larger issues reminds me of I'm a nerd, so in college we'd be writing code, and it just reminded me of, like, you have to hunt through this hundreds of lines of code, and you don't know what you're looking for, but it always ended up being like that one little comma that was like
yes. Oh, you make me so happy to hear that, because I use that analogy of the comma frequently in code, and to actually hear somebody who's done this, that makes me happy. That makes me happy. When I was, yeah.
That's why I hated coding.
Yes.
I see no issue with this. Why is this not working?
It should work. And then you eat your punch card and you put it into the Univac and you wait for hours to get your result. Oh, nobody knows what I'm talking about, but anyway.
That wasn't quite the same process for me.
When I was at university, and it was just the beginning, computer science was new. They literally had a big Univac that was, I don't know, bigger than this house that I'm living in now, and it was punch cards.
Yeah.
It was the personal computers had just come out, but the university still had the punch cards. So to write the thing on the punch cards, you get that wrong, you gotta go, it's like, come on. It's way worse than this even now. It was a mess. It was a mess. So.
Yeah, my dad, when he first his first real job out of high school was writing code for IBM.
He knows all about it then. Yeah.
He used to take notes on punch cards. I mean, he had millions of punch cards. He kept for 30 years.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, it was something else. But it was kind of exciting. Pascal was the big language then.
Yeah, I mean, he had this program that he'd written. It was a very simple program, but it was like thousands of punch cards long. And he had them all in order, and he went to, he was in line ready to feed him in the machine, and he tripped.
Oh my God. Oh, that's the horror stories you hear about. There's another one actually happened to somebody. It's a cliched horror story. You don't realize, what it took in those days. I mean, it's mind blowing. You write your program, and once you drop them, it's like it's not very easy to put them back in order again. It's
right.
Wow. Anyway, very exciting.
And my last point on that was, usually when you do that, you have to hunt through and find like that one little thing that's wrong. A lot of times it was because you took a shortcut and you copy and pasted someone else's code. Not what you had, not the original content you had created. You had copied someone else's. It never worked right.
And that is a skill to develop, which is also an editing skill. It is to see what is, not to see what we believe is. And you see it when I do, Erica Join points out some something that needs editing in the slide sometimes. If I'm quick and I read what I think I should see, then I don't see it. But if I go slower and read what is rather than what I believe I should see, then you catch those fairly easily. But one trick for that, I don't know if you still do coding, is to either read it out loud to yourself or get one of the text-to-speech programs to read it to you. This is fantastic. When you hearing and reading both at the same time, you catch almost every single mistake. If I have to edit for people, and I do sometimes edit for them, that's what I do. I run it and I just have the AI read it, and then I catch the things really quickly. It's very powerful because they go slow relative to you, and you have to stay with it. You don't read ahead. You stay with each word as they say it. It's a bit boring, but it's ridiculously powerful for catching it. Now, I don't know reading code if that will work quite the same. I'm not sure, but maybe.
Yeah, don't write it anymore if I don't have to.
Yeah.
Ah, right. Okay. It's good that you have the skill, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good to understand the logic behind it. And
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
Work.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, the questions. Why is conformity of the BSer and the BMN peculiar? And I said at this point, I don't know if I agree that it is peculiar, you know, based on the fact that it's based on wanting to fit in.
Yeah.
You know, you had asked me that same question, you know, several weeks ago.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. And that's really nice to see the progression, the difference.
Mm-hmm.
We always want to be focusing on our progression. It's very useful. And like I said, you know what you said when you first started, you pointed out the peculiarity of it. But yeah, to now see it as not peculiar because you understand it. So it is now it's in peculiar in inverted commas, right?
Right. Right.
It shifted. That's fantastic. It's fantastic. It's really, really awesome. Very cool. Very cool.
Complexes are born out of inferiority complexes.
Yeah.
Please flesh out the underlying logic. All right. So I said this is like the guy who has a small package buying the biggest car, right? Somebody who's overcompensating.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a classic, but it's so true. It's really sad, you know.
Yeah, it's
And
all.
you know what's even worse? It is the perception of the
Right.
smallness. It's not
Right.
necessarily a reality.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's all a self-defense mechanism. They're trying to hide what their biggest insecurity is.
Wow.
And in their mind, the only way to hide their biggest insecurity is to project it as their biggest strength.
Exactly. Let's
see. Why is it important to be the original content creator of yourself? Because it's the only way to know that you have independence of being and to know that you're not a conformist by default.
Yeah. And you can end up living deliberately.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you live deliberately, you make every single thing you do meaningful and purposeful and significant to you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You end up living with MPS, meaning per second.
Aha.
Yeah. Meaning, purpose, and significance. Yeah.
Connect the trickle-down effect of cumulative, seemingly insignificant consequences to impeccability. Every little white lie that seemingly doesn't matter, even if no one else realizes it, affects your view of your own impeccability. And once you pass a certain point of damaging your impeccability, you can, in your own mind, you can never recover from that.
Yeah.
You have no choice but to keep moving forward.
Yes. On a side point on that, yes, I agree with you that you can't recover. The key is in that sentence, the you. So if you are in a circumstance where you have radically transgressed for whatever reason, and I deal with this when we deal with people who are dealing with profound guilt and shame, the only way you can do and move on and recover from profound guilt and shame when you really are guilty of it, and this is it, you have real guilt and shame, not imagined guilt and shame. The only way you can change from that is if you change. It's like, in math, when you change the various sides of an equation, you change one side or you change the other side and you make your equation come whole. So in that case, you can't change the guilt and the shame. You can't change the action, but you can change you. So if you profoundly change and you become a new person and a better person, and especially if you use that guilt and shame as a leverage point to motivate you to change so radically and drastically that at some point in the future you can say legitimately and honestly, it was not me who did those things. I am no longer that person. Then you can let go of the guilt and shame. So there is a way out. And it's a profound mechanism. It's a really, really profound mechanism. And I do see really, really good people who have done shameful things in their past, and they get stuck on this, and they don't realize that, hey, me of now is not me of then. And I've got a beautiful poem on the me of now and the me of then. That's very powerful. You got to, at some point, say, begone, ghosts of past, me, So it's very cool. It's a very powerful thing to be aware of. So big deal. I'm assuming that guilt and shame in your past is not the thing, but I don't want to assume. You never know. For either of you.
Guilt and shame in my past. I certainly don't feel guilty or shameful today about anything.
Excellent.
I may have. back then.
Mm-hmm.
Probably did. I'm sure I did.
Right.
Not legitimately, I don't think, but anyway.
I am, that's one of the big things that I think I've been working on with Kathy has been finding sympathy, I guess, for myself in past experiences. Not that, I mean, specifically the whole thing with Phil, I don't know that there's anything that I feel truly guilty about or shameful about, in a really deep sense. But I think prior to really facing a lot of those experiences and digging in and going back and trying to kind of heal what was happening at that point, I had sort of a general sense of why I didn't handle this the right way, why did this happen? And so going back and recognizing that the me of then was doing the best that she could do with what she had. I didn't have the same tools that I do now. Maybe the me of now would have done it differently, but the me of then was not the me of now, and she didn't have the same tools at her disposal. So I don't need to feel guilt or shame for what she was doing because she's doing the best she could with what she had.
Yes. That's the hardest thing for earnest good people, to make peace with the fact that they.
I don't know what that is.
I love that face. That was a good face. That was brilliant. What is it? Some kind of a beetle? A slug? A snail?
Joe tossed this thing. I don't know if you can see that onto this plate, and I was looking at it, trying to figure out what it was, and he was
okay, maybe it's just a booger. It's no big deal.
Yeah. Whatever it is.
That was brilliant. I love that. But yeah, I was going to say, it's one of the biggest problems for earnest good people is to make peace with the fact that they weren't 100% in the past. Right. You were ignorant in the past, for crikey's sake. Someday you can look back now and you say, oh my goodness, what was I doing? But at least we don't feel it now. So you might feel it in the future. But then you can say, wow, you know what? I did my best at the time. And this is the magic of impeccability. Mm-hmm. You didn't deliberately feel that you were impeccable back then. Had you would look back now and then and say, but you know what? What's the issue? I was being impeccable back then. Of course, I didn't know everything because, well, that's just the nature of the deal. But I was impeccable, so I'm okay. I've got myself covered. That's it. This is the genius and the magic and the awesome of impeccability. Mm-hmm. It takes care of you feeling bad in the future about now.
Right.
That's it. If things go foobar, I was being impeccable. I'm sorry. That's it. I can't feel bad. I did whatever I could. That's it. I can only do my impeccable best. That's it. No more. And impeccability is not necessarily doing everything that could be done.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have the time and energy to do everything you could. So there's a cutoff point at some time. I said, sorry, that's it. That's just the way it goes. Life is full of stuff like that. Here's the magic on this point. Here's the real magic on this point. When we've been impeccable and things do go foobar, and I've got fantastic stories about this. I told you one yesterday, I think, right? Bunch of them that, as a concept, well, the lottery story, that's a great story. Okay, in that case, I actually wasn't impeccable, but that's I was kind of, but not. So anyway, but when you've been impeccable and things don't go the way, there's usually some profound magic that results. You end up in a circumstance that you would never have placed yourself in, not in your wildest dreams. And now you realize, oh my goodness, hasn't it been for that? I would not have this magical experience,
Right.
Like I was telling Eric Jane about the story when we were homeless in Santa Monica, and how it was such a fantastic experience. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating in any way, shape, or form. It was unbelievable, and it was transformative in many ways. The experience itself was fun and fantastic, but the consequence of it, in terms of undoing a conditioning, as a self-proof mechanism, and I can go on for an hour on just how awesome it was. but fortuitous mistake, in other words. It's a profound thing, because when we look at the unknown, that's what we're looking to learn, is the unknown, right? But the unknown is all around us. Which way do you go? You don't know. So a fortuitous mistake takes you into the unknown, which is a 360 thing around us, and it takes you in that direction of the specific unknown that you need to know. And it's incredible. It's incredible, the magic of it. It's just fantastic. It's something else. It's really profound. So, very cool. And when we learn to perspective shift on the past also, it changes everything. I mean, look at Phil. He was an irritation and a nuisance then, but he's a blessing now.
Right.
Yeah. Phil the pill. He's very much like a pill. It tastes nice, but it has good effect. Yeah.
All right, I got a couple of minutes left.
Oh, sure.
One more. Is this the last one?
Yeah.
Number 12, origins. I only had one repeat back on this one. And I said that the biggest problem with the most well-known BMNs of today is not that they are, they're ever present in today's media. It's the fact that they're in such high-profile, high-impact positions in society. You can get really far in life, as a BMN, and that makes you more attractive. Not only to the media, but to everyone else, right? Everyone else.
Exactly. Get the bandwagoning effect. Yeah.
Right.
It's a problem.
Okay. What exactly does the application of discernment involve when it comes to being aware of the BMN in the early stages? So I said observations and behavior, trying to notice that when they speak about themselves and their accomplishments, do they talk about their successes and failures or just their successes? Do they always have some better way to do something, say something, some way to come out on top, or a recommendation on the way that you do something? They always talk about the way that you should do something instead of the way that they did something. Or if they do talk about what they did, it's always about what worked for them and not what failed. Looking back, what would have been helpful to know and be aware in the beginning of an involvement with the BMN. So my kind of smart aleck comment was how to recognize one.
Yes, no, but it's a profound comment. It's a simple thing. But huge. Huge. No, Joe, that's a huge point. Yes, it seems redundant, but we keep doing this, and our job is to make the obvious for the most part. This is the magic. The obvious is only obvious once it's obvious. Wasn't obvious before it was obvious. Once it's obvious, it's usually profound. We need to associate the obvious with the profound. They are almost always the same thing. It's amazing. So it's a simple, obvious thing, but it's very profound.
I went on to say, personality traits and other things to look for, ways to make sure that you don't become overly impressed by them based purely on what they're saying about themselves, and ways to force yourself to kind of go, go check and form your own legitimate opinion. Let's see, what positive agendas and habits did you have that maybe interfered or prevented perception of what you needed to be or be alerted to? One of them is assuming people generally have good intentions, which I don't think is a bad thing to assume, but it causes you to not question someone's motivation or look for the signs that would reveal their true motivations.
Right. We want to get to a space where we can trust without trusting. So we assume good motivations, but we don't do so as an absolute.
Right.
We don't ever cross that commitment line to say, okay, I'm in bed with you now, I'm doing business with you, whatever. That's crossing the commitment line because we don't have proof that it is. So we trust and we don't trust both at the same time. It's very important. Very, very powerful space to be in.
And how were you not deliberately appropriate with your goodness and perceptions? And I thought about some situations where you say, well, that's just the way that person is, and you just kind of write it off instead of addressing. Taking the assumption that everyone has good intentions and using it to excuse the person's behavior, right? Using it to excuse, it's kind of like saying,
yes. That's deliberate inappropriateness. I mean, that question is written a little peculiarly because I was having fun with the words, but it's about being deliberately inappropriate. And
Mhm.
that is when we kind of, like you say, you'd excuse things because it's convenient to say, yeah, well, I'm assuming they had good intentions. You know that's BS, but that's you off the hook for doing something about it. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Appeasement. We don't want to be appeasers. No, yeah. So it
Mhm.
led to the Second World War, right? Appeasement. Oh, it's
Yeah.
a policy. It was actually literally called the policy of appeasement. You know, Chamberlain. That was what he called it, appeasement.
Right.
Mhm.
Anyway, so yeah, yeah.
And that was it.
Ah, brilliant, brilliant. So I just want to make a quick point on what we're about when with the program. It's awareness, yes, and to go on your point about recognizing it. So yes, we want to learn to recognize it. And the more we do, and we're not just going to recognize that it exists, and being more obvious and apparent, but also the nuance of it and the specific detailed nuance applications. Because the more we get to see these particular variations, the more we get to recognize it not just firsthand when it's coming out of the mouth, but for instance, in movies, in advertising, in culture. We want to go even further. We want to develop this depth of sophisticated discernment to take that there and take it internal to see, hey, I'm not a BSer, but I have the capabilities and I have assimilated some of these super subtle, tiny, super nuanced, minute little variations of the stuff, and it's in me. To be able to recognize that, we need to first see it in the gross outside of us. Otherwise, we never see that inside of us. It's too subtle. So it's finding those commas inside of us.
Mhm.
So this is what we're about. This is why this program isn't about VS and BMNs and narcissism and deception. Yes, but it is actually just a mechanism that gives you that, which is a bonus, but it's an awareness and a sophistication, a nuanced, sophisticated discernment program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So as we go, that will come automatically, but we have to just go through it. That's all, So
Mhm.
it's nice to know to be really clear about what it is that we are doing. That's the end point, and we're going to go even a little bit further than that because of the moreness. So we'll get there. We'll get there. I'm just saying it's not all about the BS. It's about how you are recognizing it. How
Mhm.
it's the how of the awareness and to the subtlety, the nuance, the sophistication, and to be able to see it just automatically without having to calculate and figure it. It just comes. It's like, you walk outside and you see it's hot. Well, you'll feel it's hot. You just know it. You don't have to think it. So yeah, this
Mhm.
is the key.
Right.
Yeah. So very powerful. And it changes you. It changes you completely. And people will start reacting and responding to you differently as a consequence also.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
If you're ever on when Sue's on, ask her the William story. But you gotta go.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Brilliant.
All right. Thank you
Brilliant.
very
Brilliant.
much.
Okay.
Ah, that was
Thanks.
super
Thanks.
fun, Joe. Super fun. I love it. Wish we had more time with you, man. Wish we had more time. So it'll come.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
All right. I'm
I
gonna
really enjoy it, Twin Toes. Yeah, I really enjoy it. Ah, you're
me
going
too.
upstairs.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna go
yeah.
upstairs because
It gives me great joy. It gives me great joy. These, I know it's only a short time, but it gives me great joy. It gives me great. I feel bad, kind of holding up Joe, but I'm greedy. I'm greedy. I'm greedy. So yeah, yeah, yeah.
It is really cool what Joe mentioned today about the quote unquote cool people. It seems like they are living in a moment. Just quite very interesting for me because all the people around us who are just doing everything, they jump into everything, they don't think about much and they do things. It looks like on surface that they are living in the moment, which is quite an interesting perspective for me.
Yeah.
And but of course, it's something that they are getting ideas from external influences, not their own, and from just all the shoulds that okay, because this is the cool thing, so we should do that. So it is not actually not in reality
Yeah.
living in the moment
No.
and having their own intent. But yes, on surface it seems like. And the
Yeah.
other one, he mentioned that it was very subtle. He mentioned that about people in power
Mm,
and the perception media is creating, and
right.
also the people around us, and in politics and in everything, you can see that people who are in power and at some position, it seems like all the BSers are in power. Which is somehow might be a reality too, because they are the people who continuously looking and seeking for some sort of
Exactly.
power.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
you will see them around that. It is like just people who are actually alcoholics. So you might like see them almost always around the alcohol. So it
Yeah.
is like that. They are for them the power is like that.
Yeah.
So somehow they just be in that. They manage their way to some sort of power. So that it seems like on surface, oh, all the PSS, these are the qualities you must have to be in power and to get there require some power.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of really cool. He mentioned that.
Yeah.
These were the 2 points from Joe's takeaway and repeat backs.
Yeah.
And the third one for me was Erica, when you mentioned that about the past and now thinking about with a different perspective about Phil, that he was doing all sort of whatever he was doing, and you think that you might do, you might be able to at that time to do better, but okay, you didn't do that. But you are judging or kind of again looking at yourself through the lens of the perspective of or lens of awareness of right now you have. So that was not the case at that time.
Right.
And again, I feel that somehow earnest good people like you kind of by default you take for granted your innate goodness, because it seems like that, oh, because I just did that, it was not deliberate, because your goodness is so innate. So we do something and we feel that, oh, this was something I just did, and this was like, oh, we've always, because we see that some people around us, they do, when they try to be good, there is a kind of a struggle involved there, deliberateness, at least very obvious deliberateness. And when we don't do that, or some people don't do that, we feel that, oh, it was just happened. It just happened. No, because we are missing the deliberateness in that, and also we take our innate goodness for granted. So you were, as far as I understand that, because you had awareness, it was not completely projected in your consciousness at the time in your forefront, but you had that awareness and you were impeccable even at that time. But judging someone with the lens of awareness you have right now, which you didn't have at that time, is kind of unfair for yourself.
Right.
And again, for me, it is just not about even being impeccable or not. You are actually for granted, for me, you are taking for granted your innate goodness.
Right. Yeah, I have been thinking a lot over the last, I don't know, I guess last day or two about a really similar topic, and just about my innate goodness and sort of some implications of that that have really changed. I know it's changing the way I'm thinking about past me and other parts of me in a really interesting way. I think I told you all that I am starting to listen to a book that I started like at least a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and never finished. And so I've gone back and I've started it over. The Not Nice book, and all about, how nice has this association of being a really good thing, but in reality, nice is really, we need to reassociate that. And so I was listening to it yesterday, and today the author has been talking about, it's so interesting. So much of what he says fits so perfectly with disability stuff. And the first time I went through it, I didn't see that at all. This time this makes sense.
Connectivity, capital C connectivity.
One of the things within the last day or two that he got to talking about was he's gone through sort of identifying why nice is not good, why we tend to go way overboard, you know, all of the different problems that it causes when you're being nice. And then he said, okay, you know, the next logical step that you might be thinking is, okay, great, you know, how do I work on not, you know, being not nice? And, you know, what do I do now? How do I replace this? And he said, but first, before we can get to a place where you can really start practicing this stuff, you have to, I forget how he said it exactly, but basically it was like, before we can get to the, you know, we've come to this point here, before we can go out into all the rest of this, we have to connect to your power. And I thought that was so interesting because in your mind map, you know, that like power is right here and it makes everything else. And so he was talking about, and I remember hearing this the first go through with this book, but he's talking about how when you're overly nice, you disconnect yourself from your power because you shove down all of these feelings and emotions and thoughts and desires and things that you think are wrong in some way. And that most of the time that those things are really kind of directly connected with your power. And so you have to get back in touch with that before you can move forward. And it was so interesting. He's been talking about the shadow self, like the Carl Jung concept of shadow self. And Kathy talks about that a lot too. And in the book, he was saying, I haven't read any of Carl Jung's stuff, so I can't speak to it directly, but he said that basically the shadow self is sort of a culmination of all of the things that you thought you shouldn't be or do or say or want or whatever. And so, you know, all of these emotions, feelings, desires, whatever, this is what makes up your shadow self. And so you know, he goes through this exercise of, okay, you know, what we need to recognize is that for those of us that are overly nice, we have shoved the shadow self down into the basement for basically our entire life. And it's time to let them out, give them a seat at the table, you know, whatever. And it went through, at some point, he goes through an exercise of, you know, okay, we're going to work on bringing the shadow self up, validating it, you know, telling it has a seat at the table. It's going to help us figure things out. And I did that before, but I know that I didn't really, you know, I went through the motions, but I wasn't really at a point where I was actually doing that. And I realized that the reason was because for me, it was so, I need to find my notebook because I was really interested. One of the sections right before this in the book was about writing out your beliefs. What do I believe?
Wow.
And one of the things that and I do not remember writing this, but one of the things that I had in my beliefs was I am a good person.
Yes.
And it was really interesting that I was like, wow, you know, that's like, go past me. I like actually wrote that down. But
Beautiful.
I'm realizing that at the time, I didn't really have a full grasp of really believing that and like trusting myself fully. And so I'm realizing that, you know, what was missing for me in that was this full concept of me seeing myself, trusting myself as a good person. And I was thinking about the shadow self, and that I think a big hang up for me in the past, and I'm realizing now that this makes sense to me, is I didn't see my shadow self, or I don't even really like that term now that I'm thinking about it in this way. So I don't know, whatever you want to call that part of me. I didn't see all of those desires, emotions, feelings, thoughts, whatever, as part of that good person, right? It was like, here's me, this is me, the good person. And then there's my shadow self and and I wasn't seeing the big picture, but I was thinking about it this morning and I thought, okay, if I truly believe that I am a good person, that means all of me is a good person, and that includes my shadow self.
Exactly.
My shadow self is not a separate entity that represents all the bad parts of me. Every single part of me is a good person, and therefore these desires, wants, beliefs, thoughts, feelings, emotions, all of these things that, whether it was my parents or society or some other reason, all these things that somehow in me became associated with things that were bad, that I shouldn't want, that I shouldn't feel, all of those are good. That is a good part of me. And so if I truly can believe that I am a good person as an entirety, whole, all of these things that I was wanting and feeling and thinking were not actually bad or wrong. It was wrong according to someone else.
Exactly.
And it doesn't mean that, you know, anything and everything that I might think, want, desire, feel, whatever is like perfect and that's exactly what I should be doing. But it doesn't mean that the intent behind them is bad.
There you go. There's the magic key point to it.
Yeah, probably a lot of the things that are associated with my shadow self are sort of inappropriate applications of goodness, or things that I just haven't come to terms with or understood how it's a good thing for me. It may not be something that other people think is desirable, but at the root of it, the intent of it was good, and it was for the good of me.
Exactly.
So, of course, I can welcome shadow self to the table now if I trust and see my shadow self as a good part of me. I couldn't before because I didn't see it as good.
Exactly.
But I can see it now as being good, and I can honor that part of me and say, okay, if I'm feeling this, I know I'm a good person. So if I'm feeling angry, that doesn't mean that I'm a bad, you know, it's not bad. That anger isn't bad. There's obviously a reason that I'm feeling this way. What is the intent behind this? Why? Yeah, what's the motivation? Why am I feeling this way? What's the good intent behind this? It doesn't mean I have to act solely on my anger, but if I stop and see, okay, this is coming from me, I am a good person, so there is a good intent behind this somewhere. There's something that I'm supposed to be learning about this or whatever. So how can I root out the intent and then act appropriately based on what
and also to understand that the intent may be good, but the application may be inappropriate.
So, okay, Erica, first, love you, really love you, because this is what I was trying to share with you yesterday. Yeah, this is what I was trying to share with you yesterday.
Yes, we do love you, yes.
Okay, and the second thing is, I feel that for me, if we call ourselves that shadow self, unaware self, does it make sense, more sense to us?
Yeah.
I'd rather actually even want to, that's the point I wanted to make, but then I wanted to just hear you first, Beena. We can call it our additional self. Because they are just aspects. So Beena, let me elaborate a little bit. All of those elements of the so-called shadow selves are just parts of us that are there to be used as appropriate. So they are capabilities. Typically, those are capabilities that seldom find appropriateness. But nonetheless, they are there. They just seldom have appropriateness, or sometimes even never. But that doesn't mean that they cannot be useful or they are needed. Again, if you have every tool in the toolbox, you're not going to use them all if you literally go and buy every tool in the hardware store. But having them is nice, right? I actually do love tools. I really enjoy having tools. So that's why I say it's our additional self, yeah, because they are additional tools to use as appropriate. When you look at it in this way, there's no good or bad involved. It's simply an unused tool as appropriate. Now, some tools, again, look at your kitchen tools, right? I mean, Olivia used to have a drawer. And oh my goodness, I'd open that drawer and I'm like, the hell torture instruments are these? Like, what on earth is going on here, girl? And I make up all these wild stories, about like an alien coming to visit, and they get the wrong idea with all these. I mean, there's some fantastic cooking things out there, right? It's like, wow, if you don't know what they're for, boy, oh boy, they really mystify you. But again, they seldom use tools, but some people do use them. Beena, you cook a lot, so some of those tools, right? Same way.
I was actually laughing with my friend that why people make so much, like, create fuss about cutting a watermelon. Like, there's so many tools. Come on, guys, just a knife and that's it. Why do you need that all these things and all sort of like weird looking gadgets and all these things? Come on, it's a melon. Cut it as whatever you like and eat it.
Yeah, actually, you know what really works well for the watermelons is a cheese cutter. A garrote, which is originally a cheese cutter.
Actually,
Yeah.
I
Well, no,
feel
if you
that
watch
that's
it,
the
if you
chopper.
watch it done, Beena, it's just a thin wire. They use them in the big
I know,
supermarkets to
I
cut the
know,
cheese, and it's
I
very
know.
effective. So yeah.
I
But
feel
anyway,
that
I agree with you. I agree with you.
yeah, this is something. So we were talking, Erica, and the other thing you mentioned about the personal power, if I remember it correctly, the compromise. I feel that personal power might be capital T trust.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Self, specifically self-trust.
Yeah. So I love this. It's a nice Don Juan quote. He said, "A warrior is impeccable when they trust their personal power, regardless of how small it may be." I don't remember many quotes, but so this is key. Trusting our personal power is what makes us impeccable.
What you were listening to in that book, I was trying to understand that, because of course we are not listening to that, so it is just a second-hand thing for us. So if I change the word personal power or power to capital T trust, and shadow self to additional self or unaware self, okay, unaware is maybe not appropriate, maybe speaking, but additional self, then it makes whole lot of sense for me. Yes, it is right. And again, when people are really, really intelligent and so innately good, we kind of take it for granted. And we miss that deliberateness. Okay, Erica, if I just, and you are, okay, your husband, Joe, if he just starts saying that things in a way which he actually not being deliberate, like saying he loves you, and he didn't say that in a way or not show that in a very deliberate way, you start kind of getting it, okay, it's not there. So this is what is happening with us also. When we have something which is so profound and we do act so innately, so automatically, in other words, we start taking it for granted and we assume that it doesn't exist at all. It just happened. But for me, I guess that it never just happened. You were a good person and you were so innate in that. So you just miss the deliberateness in that.
Right.
Otherwise, everything. And again, we start to, we do that. Everyone, like I do that too. I start just judging myself or analyzing myself and scrutinize my actions, past actions, that, I was not there, I did that. And I still now, in recent past also, I do recall everything and say, Beena, you just messed up there, you did that, you did that. But I'm just looking at myself, my past self, through the lens of right now me. I have a different awareness now. How can we do that? It's quite unfair. So I feel that this is what you are doing also a bit.
Yeah,
very powerful, beautiful too.
I definitely think I have in the past, and that's been one of the really big things of a lot of the work I've done with Kathy, specifically in these instances of a lot of turmoil and chaos and things going on, that I can look back and really appreciate how I handled situations, how I came out of them, how I was trying to be appropriate given my awareness at the time, given my what I had available to me at the time. I can really look back and appreciate myself for how I handled things as the person I was then. So yeah, that's been a really big thing. And I've been thinking a lot about, I actually was thinking in the same vein of the shadow self or additional self, And with this, I've been thinking a lot about shame as part of the PSP course, and how shame is a really common tool with BS and BSers and BMNs, that, shame is really designed to keep us in line and keep us sort of shackled into someone else's view of what is right.
Yes,
And
yes.
when I feel shame about something that I did in the past, even though I was doing the best I could, or if I feel shame about um, my additional self, I'm allowing myself to continue operating within the realm of what someone else feels is wrong or what someone else
Yeah,
feels is right.
yeah,
But again, if I truly trust that all of me is a good person with good intent, how can I feel shame
exactly. You
about a
cannot,
part of me or what I've
cannot,
done in
you
the
cannot,
past? If I
you cannot.
truly, if I really think it through
Yeah,
and make sense of it, I can't feel shame
yeah,
about any part of me or anything
yeah,
that I
yeah, yeah,
feel or
yeah,
want or,
yeah,
whatever. It doesn't make sense. If I've
yeah.
established myself as a good person
Yes,
in
exactly,
my entirety, I can't feel
exactly,
shame
exactly.
about me.
Exactly. It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal what you're saying, Erica. It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. Now, there are people who have done things, good people, who at the time knew it was wrong and did it anyway.
Right.
And it's a sad thing when they do that. And, but still, it happens. Even then, you do things. Why on earth you don't? I don't know. It's a strange thing. So it's a powerful force, but it's good to realize this. And I sent you that the poem, the me of now and the me of then. So it's a
Yeah.
powerful poem. Again, these extra articles are, if you find time. If you don't, it's not the end of the
Right.
world too.
Right.
So I'm always interested to hear if you do read them. I'm always curious. If you have
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
comments? So
Absolutely. I
yeah.
started to watch one of the videos you sent and then I ran out of time. So I need to go.
Which one? Which one?
I noticed yesterday that I had a backlog of stuff in Messenger that I need to catch up on. It was, which one was it? It was the "Don't Talk to the Police" video, and I had started to watch
Oh,
that
oh.
like
I
not.
don't worry about it. That was just about unintended consequences.
Hmm.
So it's a bit longish, but the first half is really what you need to watch,
Yeah.
and where the guy goes through it, and he makes a great case for even when you think you are doing good and being right, how it can still be used against you.
Right.
All right, we tend to. I grew up where police were kind of honored and they were respected, and or even though they were dreadful at the time, but
Right.
um, where if we had a police force where integrity and impeccability was, like the thing, like a policeman is considered the absolute top of the line when it comes to integrity and impeccability and honor, then it would be a different deal. But people have agendas; they need to get their case. So he just said, don't talk to them, no matter how good you think it is, how innocent you are. Do not, So
Right. Right.
but it's about unintended consequences, really. So that's the key point. It's amazing how he shows the examples, like you say this, and then you see how it ends, and then it ends up being used against you in some way.
Right.
Unintended consequences. So don't worry to watch it though. It's just about unintended consequences. I think you got enough with unintended
Right.
consequences. So
Well,
don't worry about it. Yeah, yeah,
well, I started to watch it right after you sent it, and then I
yeah.
got bored. Yeah, I
That's
saw yesterday after you sent me something that I was like, oh,
Oh, I sent you the the
kind of,
the head article.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's about perspective shifting on handicaps,
Okay.
and position where people are in positions where you naturally default to feeling sorry for them, to say no, no, it's not a default.
Right.
It's not. It's not a default. So, and that's very powerful. It's very powerful. And then we start to look at everything to say, oh, hmm, wait a minute, I've been taking stuff for granted and just
Right.
assuming. But no, there's lots of reality behind things that's very different. And then this one now, the me of then and the me of now. This is just about making peace with the me of then.
Hmm.
And it's not about shame or guilt necessarily. It's just in any way, just to make peace with our nincompooperi. it's really about the ghosts of it.
Mm-hmm.
No, this is important. This is important. Yeah, yeah. So that's very cool. Very, very, very cool.
Before I forget,
Mm.
I wanted to get both of your input. Joe requested some logos for the website from someone on Fiverr. And so he got some of them back and we went through them yesterday and I was giving my feedback on, my kind of initial.
Oh, I like this. I like this. Let's see him. Let's see him.
And
Don't tease us.
so I want to see what you guys think.
Yes, let's see.
So I asked first, I suggested from my perspective some revisions and Joe agreed and asked for those. And so I want to see what you guys think.
Discernment tests.
So I will
Discernment tests. Yeah, we never got to hear Erica Jane's perspective on us yesterday, by the way, Beena. You remember?
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
No, I don't forget these things. It's okay. Well, another day will come. Another day will come.
You are quite daring, sir. I was afraid that, come on, what's gonna come?
Oh, I welcome it. I want to be judged. I welcome judgment. I'm very judgmental. I judge everything. If I see something that's nice, that's a judgment. I like the music. It's a judgment. It's like duh. So judgment is one of those hollow words. You can't avoid it.
Right.
People just don't want judgment that's not favorable to them. It's like no, it doesn't work that way. You judgment like crazy. If you have any kind of a like or a dislike, you're judgmental.
Right.
inFocus web design, inFocus web design, inFocus web design. I'm assuming they're all different. It's not one big design, right?
Right. These are all separate designs. And Joe, so the point of this, the idea that Joe had behind this business is that it's intended to be a sort of a turnkey web design solution for small businesses. Something easy, simple, affordable.
Sorry. I have to interrupt you because I don't want his perspective, because the customer's not going to know that. So I want to evaluate this from that same perspective without knowing his idea, right? Because I need to be able to perceive that through the logo.
Well, that was why I was sharing, because I think some of these convey, I was trying to figure out which ones of these fit the most with that. He kind of gave her, okay, this is what I'm going for. And then I was trying to kind of figure out, okay, what do I think fits the best with his vision.
All right, so I'll go through my process here. So hold it just where you're at there now. We do this when we choose the pictures, right?
Right.
And our designs and everything. You use two this, two that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the first one, I can't say too anything. It's not too little, not too much. It's not okay. Second one, you see where I'm going. Too fussy. Third one, too unclear. Fourth one, too heavy. Right?
Right.
The second one, this is boring compared to the first one.
Right.
Right? It's a little too abstract, I would say, this last one.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's just my quick read, and I'm being very quick about it. I really like that first one. I thought this was great. It's balanced. It's not too much. It's not too little. You've got your color. You've got a nice design that's pleasing to the eye, and it's memorable enough that you can see it. The design, it says professional, unique. The dots, the color on the dots, I would question, because they look a little faded, and that pulls away from it. My eye notices them because they are a bit faded.
Right.
So I would just say maybe fill the color in, make it a little bolder, and maybe match the color to the web design. Now, you don't want to have too many colors. I would recommend having the colors all the same maybe. Or if you are going to have a slightly different blue in web design and the design, then make the dots the same color as the web design to pull it all together. So you've got some implied coherency.
Right.
But the reasons, again, you see the second one, that design on the left, it's too fussy, it's too busy. It's like the implication of, what kind of people are these? Are these like new ages? Are they all, no, never mind. Because most people you're dealing with are going to be fairly conservative, even though there might be liberals. When it comes to business, people are pretty conservative. So I don't mean conservative in terms of
Right.
politics. I mean, in terms of sensibility,
Right.
you can't afford to be, just on that risky. No, you got to be sure about your stuff. So the second one, I do like that it's IF, and I understand what it's going. But if you don't see that right away, I didn't. That first quarter of a second when I glimpsed this, I didn't see that as IF. It was just a design. Right, so it took you 2 seconds to get it. It's like, when I get it, I don't. It's like, oh wow, that's really clever. It's like, all right, it's kind of why I have IF, and it's sort of redundant, So, and then like I said, this one with the background, it's kind of heavy on the eye. And the same one, this one all in white with the blue background, it's just boring now compared to the other one. And then this one, it's like, yeah, it's okay, but it doesn't have any sort of a funness to it, and doesn't have no power, I guess. No joy, no excitement. Yeah. Like if you want a web designer, you want a little bit of a cutting edge thing. So yes, I see this is designing it, but it doesn't put it off. It actually looks a bit boring the way it focuses, the color and all that. It just seems a bit boring. So Beena, you want to go through these and do your too much, too little, to this, to that?
Okay, so of course, surprisingly, you didn't like the second one, which I really liked that. The only thing was for me that these two entities are not really, it's somehow missing a connectivity, maybe just to make it a bit closer or some sort of thing, a shadow behind that. Otherwise, I really like the second one because for first one is, it is interesting. The dots are making it different, but it is kind of like you see almost everywhere these type of lines, and it's a common thing for me.
This is so funny. Your takeaways are like spot on with the same things that I said.
And am I in tune with Joe? Oh dear, I hope not. But
Yeah. I'll tell you.
keep going.
Okay. Okay, and the fourth, the black one. So I said that yes, it's too heavy, and it's more like you are just reading some book title or something. So it is too bold for me with the black background, and the arrow is kind of really sharp in that. It takes all the attention. So it is not really working for me. The blue background, it's not the first one. I feel as still said that yes, the first one is better than this one because the blue background, it makes it like this is something else. It doesn't seem like that it is for web design. Too much blue on that. So this one.
It's boring,
the last one, I like that, but the colors are somehow getting it more on a darker side because black and the blue shades. So it is maybe if we change the colors, it will change the whole picture because I like the design.
Yes,
but the colors are very darker.
Let me make one correction, or not a correction, but an adjustment, an amendment. When it comes to 1 and 2, it depends on the question, right? Very particular. You have to be very particular in the question. If you'd asked me which of these do I personally like the most, it would be number 2.
Wow.
But that was not the question. This was a question about appropriateness for the business. Very different.
I feel that it is quite cool. And
yes, it is. But Beena, I am aware of conservatism in business. And when it comes to web design particularly, there are a lot of flash in the pans, flash Harrys, I call them, that have all this flashy stuff, and it's all BS and hype, and they don't really know what they're doing, and they talk all the jargon, and it's a mess, and people pay them a fortune, and they get a mess. So people are,
you're right.
You've dealt with web people, they are very, very mistrusting of people who are all flash. So they look for the conservative.
Okay, but the colors you see in focus, these are just blue and black, the white background. It is all in and the font is very specifically quite sharp, and I really like the font in that because it gives clarity. It shows the absoluteness, no confusion, nothing airy thing, and all these things. So it's very bold and precise and clear. But and I like that colors again. I'm going with the second one.
Right. All right. But keep in mind, Beena, too, psychologically. from a perception. If you were to say to people, you put colorful and you put a mono color like this, and you say, who's more serious? Which of these is more serious? Psychological studies. Every time the least colorful one is going to be is more serious. So this is why I am not choosing this. It goes, like I said, I personally do like it, but you cannot choose personal choice in this. You have to go for effectiveness.
Okay. So you can just take the one color out of it.
So, okay.
Yeah, maybe. I agree. You know, yeah.
Hold that thought.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
I can't get this to go away. Darn it.
Yeah.
Screen. So I'll show you the revisions that I suggested.
All right. Yeah. I mean, again, you know, you could merge and put them together. I have a suggestion. All right, there's one suggestion I wanted to make.
Suggested
Yeah.
that they take out that blue, like not have so many colors in here. So take out the color here and have it all be
and even take out that some of the color in the ball, you know, to make it just two colors.
I don't know if I can do that, but then in this one I said, you know, try inverting it so that it's not black in the background and have it be, you know, something else. But so my takeaways on these were, I told Joe, I thought, I mean, just like Beena said, to me, this looks, I mean, this symbol and the color that it has reminds me of like the old school World Wide Web, you know, the earth, like all the lines on it and everything. This to me is this looks like a tech company to me. Like this
yes.
Everything.
Exactly.
This says I'm a tech company, and it says sort of, I said to me, this one looks the most professional in terms of like kind of simple, not common exactly, but just this looks very cut and dry. It's very clear that this is a tech company, but I said to me, this one borders on being boring.
Yes, which is why I chose it.
It has it's very reminiscent of a lot of other companies, right? There's not anything that necessarily makes it stand out. This one to me stands out the most by far of all of the choices. And this one to me, out of everything else in the list, is the least techie looking to me. Like I would look at I wouldn't think this is a technology company, right? I'm not going to think this is necessarily like web design. This could be, it's more artistic. It could be anything, really. It's sort of applicable to just about anything. But I said I thought it was too busy, and so that's why I suggested taking out some of these extra colors. It's got a little bit too much going on. But this one to me is by far the most eye-catching, and it's the most interesting to me in terms of like not being boring. This one is not boring at all.
They could easily take out the yellow in that design.
Exactly. I was thinking about it.
I like the yellow.
I know. The reason
I like that too.
Erica, I like it very much too. I think it's a great design. The reason. Oh, go ahead.
Thing about the conservatism thing, but the other thing to remember is Joe's target market is not tech people. He's not looking for people who are into tech. He's looking for the average everyday person. And this, and to me, the kind of pinky purple, like I almost think maybe swap this out for some, like maybe the blue, something to tone it down a little bit, because this is so artistic that you run the risk of, to your point, kind of scaring away some of the more conservative people. But if you're talking about, you know, everyday people, that also includes people who are looking for something different and kind of fun and like whatever's gonna draw their attention the most. So I still feel like this was actually one of Joe's favorites, and I really like it. I think it's definitely a contender, but it does border on being. It's very out there. It's very.
It depends who you want to attract. So if you are looking for people who want creativity, then yes.
Right.
If you are looking for people who want their web pages fixed, then the first one.
Right.
Because I did, just where not so long ago, a couple of months back, I was helping people with their web stuff, who
Right.
had web designers, they messed it all up, and I was helping them just fix stuff.
Right.
So, and I could be in business doing that,
Right.
I'm not a particularly big web designer, but, if you know WordPress, you're pretty much there, and I do, so.
Right.
I can fix their stuff, no problem, and redesign it. But that's the problem. They had all these flashy guys, and they made a mess of the stuff. It was all how it looks, not how it works.
Right. Right.
So that's what I'm just a little cautious, because that sort of era has also passed a little bitty. Where people are jumping on the bandwagon. Most people now that I talk to about the web page and all this, or making their own website, they are aware that the golden age of websites is long since sailed, and your website is just a space where you put your stuff out. You're not going to make $1 million with your website.
Right. Right.
So they don't have the same agenda and idea and belief. There was a while back where it's like, oh, you got to get a website, and now people have got it and it didn't work, and their friends have told them, look, I got my website and I got nothing out of it. So
Right.
unless you have SEO and you market and you do all this stuff, forget it. Your website's wasting time. So is Joe looking to do SEO as well?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe.
Okay. I mean, because that's the big thing now, for people. That's what they're paying money for.
Right.
If you are serious about your website.
I don't know that that's something he's kind of still. One of the things that we talked about was doing web solutions instead of web design, so that he could add in things like search engine optimization,
Gotcha.
whatever. But I don't know that he's necessarily answered that.
So let's call it inFocus Web Solutions, which I think that's a for me personally, I would say that's a much better name, because it gives you freedom to go whichever way. So I would really recommend that over web design. That's very limited web design.
Yeah.
And with all the templates out there, web design has sort of fallen by the wayside. People don't care. They just get a template. And I don't need to design my website. Nobody's making websites from scratch. They find a template and there you go. So web design is, at least what I see, unless there's a different market that I'm not aware of. But definitely, because I hear this a lot from people. It comes up a lot. As soon as they know, I know how to know my way around, internet and tech, then they always ask, so I get connected to it a lot. So I don't see them looking for web designers anymore. And I think web design has got a bit of a dirty name, actually, too.
Possible.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to go in a few minutes.
Okay, sure. But solutions is what people are looking for. So I would really recommend that. But yeah, definitely 1 and 2. 1 and 2 are the
We talked about that, yeah. So I nixed this one pretty much immediately. I thought it was really boring, and this didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
I really like this one.
Oh, interesting.
I really like this symbol, because I think more so than any of the others that she included, this symbol goes the most with what he's going for, right? I mean, when you're talking about inFocus, this to me, I mean, having the mouse pointing, that the symbolism of that goes along with focusing on something. It's got the things around the circle that make me think of like a camera lens that's focusing. And the addition of the arrow makes it obvious that what you're looking at is some kind of technology related thing. So this one, the concept of this one, I really like. I told him that I thought that the black and sort of the color scheme that they have going makes this, for me, because I have a background in this, it makes me think of like cybersecurity, because all of the cybersecurity like this, right? It's all black, like green, whatever. So I said, this one to me definitely looks techy, but it looks, whereas this one is like safe, this one is techy in a more, this is more like cutting edge to me, like, but it's almost borderline too sort of cutting edge, like new, exciting, whatever. Which is why I suggested swap.
I mean, I'm assuming your people, your market is people like Sue. you know, her website where she's putting all her jewelry and stuff like that. Yeah.
Anybody who wants a website, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
See, that's why your cutting edge and too techie is something to keep in mind. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I didn't like this one. It reminded me too much of other vendors in the IT space. It just, I did, yeah.
It's boring.
And this one, I'm actually surprised that neither one of you said anything about this, because this immediately drove me insane with this one. This being center. The off-centerness of I was like, hell no, absolutely not. That is driving me insane.
Yeah.
So he got her to
Yeah. I tried to look at the whole thing, not the detail. Yeah.
Oh no, I could not. That just like drove me nuts.
Yeah. That's interesting. So now I'm wondering, though, you know, one thing that sorry. Go ahead.
I really like that. I'm trying to find the new one and I can't figure out where it is.
I was just going to say, one recommendation that I wanted to make is on the one that we liked is to put inside the O, to put like concentric rings that focus, or to put, you know, but you don't want to put a camera shutter because then you think it's got to do with cameras. But, you know, like just O's going smaller. You know what I mean? Like one O and then a little ring inside the O, and then a smaller ring and a smaller ring until, you know, just that focus effect. So
right
inside the O.
Well, that was the very first thing that I thought of when I was envisioning a logo, but then I realized that that's basically the Target logo, like rings going inside of each other.
Yeah, but not as a target. Just, you know, like basically like you're looking into a funnel or something. Yeah.
Right, but I'm saying I think it might invoke, like if people are looking at it, they might go like, oh, Target, you know, and I don't know. But anyway, they centered this, and I like this inordinately better. That was like really bothering me.
Right. If they had the O in a dark blue and the rest of the focus and web design in blue also, I think it would be vastly improved.
And I actually like, I don't hate the color scheme, but this one to me this looks techy to me. Like it, you know, it looks like a technical company, but it's not as safe as the first one, right? It's not as like old school looking as the first one. But it also doesn't, to me, this could be something, it doesn't scream tech necessarily. It looks like a business, like this could almost be like marketing or finance, or it kind of fits within any of those realms. But I love the diamond, the whatever I'm trying to say. I think that adds some interesting facetedness to it.
I would say on this one, web design here, it's just too weak. It needs to be stronger. You can't have your thing be weak. You see, that kills that a lot. If they were to just strengthen that a little bit deeper, it would change the whole thing. You know, put that in blue and leave the color scheme in a dark blue. That would change it a lot. So, then it would be cool. Again, that web solutions, I think that's a very big deal, rather than because this is everybody that I connect to with tech, and like I say, I could make an easy business out of it, you know, just doing solutions. That's what they need now. They don't want, they have the stuff already, but they need it fixed because it's not working properly.
Right.
That's the business, and I see tons of it, you know. So it's amazing.
For sure.
For sure. So solutions, I think that gives you a lot more flexibility. Yeah, in other words, because people always ask, and you know, that's how they got to recommend to me. They asked people that I knew, say, "Oh, do you know anybody can help me with tech that's honest and reliable and that's not going to rip me off?" And that's how they got to me. Oh, he knows about tech stuff. He's on the computer all the time.
Right.
You know, so the solutions part is definitely a market for that. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. So I was definitely.
This one did not. So Joe, when he went through and said his favorites, initially he liked this one, the like really out there one.
Interesting.
And he liked this one,
Yeah.
he did not. This one was not in his final.
Wow. Wow. Interesting.
This one he didn't like this one at all. I
Yeah.
think I don't remember if it was this one was another one that he was drawn to, but yeah, I the only one that I'm really like bleh about is this one. I'm not into this one at all.
Yeah. You know, if you want to test this a little better, find a nice large Facebook group that's more or less related to this and post it in there. This is the only way you're going to get. Otherwise, you know, the sample size is too small, and you will be really. And if you do post that and put it in there, say please say why,
right,
or at least make it a focused question. Which one of these would you hire?
One of the things that we talked about was posting that, you know, out on social media somewhere of, you know, which one do you think fits best? And we also were talking about taking his site and, you know, building up some sample things like this just to see what each one would look like. And then go.
I agree. Yeah. You know, logos too. When you actually look at logos over the years that have been popular, they're almost inevitably very simple.
Right.
You know? So, you know, the complex logos seldom last. So, you know, that's another thing for this one with the multicolors. If you look at those long-standing logos, none of them have that in it. You know. So.
That's still.
I agree. I say personally, I like it the most too. So, you know, in a thing like this, I rather err on the side of conservative. Let me put it that way.
Right.
Yeah. Because it's tricky to choose. At the end of the day, it doesn't make that much difference. That much I can tell you. It's going to be the person and the thing. So, you know, how many people are going to come to you purely off your logo?
Right.
Very few. Very few. So do what you like. In the end of the day.
That's why I think, though, that there's a case to be made for something like this that's so different.
Exactly.
And it draws you in, right? I mean, if somebody isn't necessarily going to choose you based on your logo or your name once they're really looking at it, but you want to get them to look at you, you know, like I want you to look at me and then we can work together. I mean, that's a case to be made for something like this that catches your attention immediately.
One thing that I feel very strongly about is the difference between web design and web solutions. This is a massive difference. On this, I really feel strongly you're going to lose business specifically. Because people are absolutely looking for solutions, not design. Yeah.
I'm actually surprised that he gave her web design because we had talked about this multiple times in the past, and he had said that he felt like web solutions was
tomorrow at, I believe it's at 10 o'clock. I have I had to schedule an appointment to chat to my friend Tanya. She works at I forget their name now. The parent company of WordPress.
Okay.
Yeah. So I suspect she might be able to send you guys tons of business.
Right. Yeah.
I'm gonna ask her tomorrow. So and then you'll hear from her again too. You know, she's in customer service, and she did courses. Before she went into this, she had courses to help non-techies. You know, get up, and these are people who are completely clueless, you know, who don't know what a scroll bar is, that kind of stuff. She would help those people just do, you know, and understand what it is and design your own website. So she was just perfect. I helped her get that job in WordPress, so it was very cool. You know, I just said, be you, but anyway, she thought, I don't have the qualification. I said, look, they want people who are honest, who are diligent, who are thorough, who are scrupulous. Just let them know these are your qualities. Oh, they love her over there. They love her. They love her. They love her. They sent her a desk and a chair. She works from home.
Hey.
Yeah, they actually sent her a desk and a chair. That's great. She had fun assembling the desk. That was something else. Yeah, that was very cool. But you know, if you really want to do truly web design, web solutions, this I think makes a difference. But the overall logo, not so much. But yeah, you know, that will definitely make a difference. That will make a difference. You know, I suspect that maybe in your world and Joe's world, web design means a different thing than it means to people out there.
Right. Right.
So it'd be good to check on that. But yeah, if you really want to do it, do a big study. Otherwise, do what the hell you like and have fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
True. That's true. I agree.
And
All right.
it's an online business, so nobody's gonna notice if you change it.
True.
Because you're not looking at real repeat customers. It doesn't matter. So it's not critical.
Right. True.
So, brilliant,
That is
brilliant,
true.
brilliant, brilliant.
Well, I appreciate you taking a look at it and both offering your.
It was fun.
insight.
That was magic fun. So that was brilliant. That was brilliant. All right, brilliant. Have fun, Erica. Where are you off to in such a hurry? Quickly
Yes.
before you run.
I've got to get some guitar practice in. I have not practiced it.
Oh, good. All right, very cool.
Gotta get
Very cool.
moving on that.
All right, brilliant.
So-
Fantastic. All right, see you Tuesday. Yeah. Are you always welcome
Alrighty,
if you find a dead spot
Okay.
anywhere? You're always welcome to come pop in anytime. You know that, right?
Okay, I will.
Oh, yeah.
I rarely find dead spots.
I
if
know,
do,
but even
then
if
I-
you
Good.
just perhaps
Good.
saying hello, even if it's literally just for a
Right.
hello.
Right.
All right, bye bye,
appreciate
Erica.
that.
Bye bye.
Okay.
Yeah. See ya.
Bye.